Hello and welcome to LTC Heroes. My name is Peter Murphy Lewis. I'm your guest. Today I'm excited because I'm talking with Tom Mann. He's the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Moorings Park Communities, and he's enjoyed a long career in senior living that spanned over 27 years. He served as the Senior Vice President of Advertising for National Development of Life Plan Communities. Most recently, he served before this current position as Principal and Chief Marketing Innovation Officer for Love and Company. And today he joins us from Mooring Park Communities. Tom, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Peter. Happy to join you.
Tom, I'm excited to talk to you because you and I first talked a couple months ago, and since then I've done my research on you, and you are a good writer. You're a brilliant marketer. You're good at sales. You're the VP of sales for one of the most prestigious brands in our industry. So we have a lot to talk about. But before we go down the professional path, tell me a little bit how you got into long-term care. Do you have a unique story? Did you come around it in a backwards way? Let me hear your initiation story.
I did actually come about this. I say I'm an accidental tourist. I actually, fresh out of college, after a short stint at an ad agency, I was a copywriter. And after a couple of years of doing that, I created my own ad agency. And what I would do is would look at companies advertising for, VPs of advertising. I'd knock on their door and try to convince them that instead of hiring someone, I could fill a position and save them a whole bunch of money. And that plan was working well until I met John Erickson, great guy. Founder of Erickson Retirement Communities, and John was way more charismatic than I was convincing. And before I knew it, I was working with John and Michael Erickson. Back then, it was only one community in the Erickson family. It was Charlestown, where my parents later moved into. And that little company became, during my 15-year career there, a rather large $1 billion annual revenue a year, 20,000 residents, 10,000 employees. So it was a really fun ride. And I consider myself very, very fortunate to have kind of grown up in that fertile land and learned a whole bunch from John Erickson and Michael Erickson. And I should also mention my mentor, Dan Rexford, who's unfortunately no longer with us. He certainly had a huge impact on my career.
How has marketing changed over the years? Can you take me back to your first month when you got into long-term care? Tell me what marketing and sales looked like back then. It's got to be tremendous change.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is when John and Michael hired me, Erickson had no in-house ad agency, so I was kind of the copywriter, the graphic designer. I was cutting and pasting and running photo stats to the Baltimore Sun. And what really has changed is back then, of course, there was no digital, and now I would tell you over 60% of our leads here at Moorings Park Communities come in digitally. I've created a position called a MQL specialist, marketing qualified lead specialist. And she works on converting those leads into sales qualified leads and then passing them on to the sales team, which is a very, very valuable tool because a whole bunch of sales counselors don't want to waste their time sorting through the good and bad digital leads. So it's changed pretty dramatically since I was a young pup.
What did that marketing sales muscle look like back then when you were a young pup?
For Erickson, it was really primarily newspaper, although we did a lot of TV advertising. We had an in-house. We created our own commercials in-house. First, Michael Erickson and I created them, and then later we were lucky enough to hire a guy named Mike Serio who really took the TV department and grew it substantially and did great work. But a lot of testimonials. In fact, we kind of prided ourselves in the fact that the TV commercials were not highly polished, that they were testimonials, and they just seemed more authentic because of that. And then we also wrote columns. Another one of my good friends, Gary Applebaum, Dr. Gary Applebaum, was the chief medical officer at the time. And so we would write columns from Gary, written in Gary's voice about, successful aging. And so Gary became a pretty widely known doc in the cities that we were working in. And then the other piece of it was we created something called the Erickson Tribune, which was a 8 to 10 page newspaper where, truthfully, we didn't do a whole lot of talking about the Erickson product. Our viewpoint was that we would win by osmosis, which means that if your direct mail became an invited guest into the house, as opposed to a nuisance showing up, that our readers would read it and start to trust us as a source of information. And that actually became true. By the time I left Erickson, we were printing 6 million Erickson Tribunes a month. We were one of the largest publications in the country.
What a unique story.
It was a wildly successful marketing tool for generating leads for our team.
When I got initiated into Facebook ads about 3 or 4 years ago, I reached out to a gentleman who worked for, I think, the largest agency in the United States, and he running millions and millions of dollars of Facebook ads 3 or 4 years ago. And he said, "Peter, the best thing that I can teach you is go read all of the important copyright books from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. They haven't written anything better." And that's what I did. And when people ask me for Facebook advice, I still send them back to those books. Did any of those have an impact on you? Did you learn from those?
Oh, yeah. It's funny. Every team member I ever hired or hire has 2 mandatory reads. The first is Ogilvy on advertising, which I was, my dad actually was fortunate enough to work at Ogilvy before he created his ad agency in Manhattan. And so Ogilvy on advertising, and then The Principles of Influence by Dr. Robert Cialdini are 2 must reads for anybody who joins my team.
Yeah. And breakthrough advertising is the third one that I've always gotten to. Those,
Yep.
It's so funny that we still go back to those and nothing's been improved. I mean, there's been nuances to it, but those are still kind of the bedrock. Tom, I'm interested in knowing how you got into Moorings Park. Can you tell me a little bit about your professional journey through long-term care and senior living?
Sure. So as I previously mentioned, I spent 15 years at Erickson, was their senior VP of advertising. Then I created my own agency and did that for several years, and then joined Love & Company as a principal, one of the key members there. And Love & Company has been around for I think almost 35 years now. And Rob Love and his mother Ann Love really founded that company, and they've specialized in senior living for many years. And so they were in my backyard, so it seemed like a natural combination that would join up with them. And Rob, by the way, is just an incredible analytical mind and knows the senior living business as well as anybody else. And his partner in crime, Lisa Peri, they are very strong. And so I had the good fortune of spending several years, almost a decade there, and then moved on when a headhunter called me up. And I had known about Moorings Park for many years because I actually benchmarked them, as a principal of a consulting firm. As you can imagine, I spent a good bit of my life on airplanes traveling to retirement communities around the country. I always joke I've been in more life plan communities than any other human on the planet. And in my presentations to boards, when I was talking to them about successful aging, in my research, I had come across this place called Moorings Park Communities. And the reason they showed up on my radar is they were the first in the country to have something called a Center for Healthy Living. And I had actually, 10 years prior to joining Moorings Park, had kind of snuck on their campus, took a bunch of pictures of the Center for Healthy Living, and had been using that in my presentations. And I was happy as a pig in mud working at Love and Company. Wasn't thinking of leaving. Wasn't imagining I would go anywhere. Thought I'd spend the rest of my career there. And a headhunter called me up and said, "Hey, Moorings Park would like to talk to you." And so I went home, talked to my wife, and said, "What do you think about Naples, Florida?" And the rest is history. I am now here in paradise. It is incredibly beautiful and a great place to be in. And this organization is everything that I thought it would be. Dan Lavender, the CEO here, and the executive team is the top in the country. And I've worked with, again, executive teams around the country and boards around the country. And this is the top of the top. I'm very, very fortunate to have landed here. I consider myself lucky and pinch myself every day.
Tom, for those who are not familiar with Moorings Park, tell me a little bit about you all. What is the reach of your care? What's your target customer?
Sure. So Moorings Park, there are 3 communities here in Naples, and we are life plan communities. We offer independent living, assisted living, skilled care, memory care. We also have our in-house rehab team, and we also have a home health agency that serves not only our residents, but the surrounding community. And then in addition to that, we have a fantastic foundation that does all sorts of great work in the community. We are a not-for-profit organization, 42 years old, and the highest financial rating in the country, Fitch A+, Fitch and Standards & Poor's A+, A. And so again, outstanding organization. For those of you who don't know Naples, it's kind of a very unique place in that the density of wealth here is off the charts. It is really, for whatever reason, historic reasons, it became a mecca for Midwestern CEOs. And so it is truly just a unique place. Again, having been all around the country, kind of like the Johnny Cash song, I've been everywhere. Outside of a few places in California and Manhattan, there really isn't this sort of wealth. And I would say that wealth has allowed Moorings Park to do certain things that other life planning communities haven't been able to do. And so our goal, I've always said since I got here, is to be the Tesla of senior living, to create things that other communities can then try to replicate and bring to their own residents.
Your website is outstanding. Your marketing is astounding. What are the differentiators that you hear from your residents in why they decide to at least start a tour? You said you have a large percentage of your leads that come through the internet. So tell me what you hear from prospects, and then I'll ask you why they end up making the final decision.
Absolutely. And by the way, thanks for the compliment on the website. I would tell you, I deserve absolutely zero credit for that. Kimberly Trammell, who was here way before me, did all the hard work. And I've always said she has got the brand voice down to a T. So again, Naples is very unique in that everybody pretty much belongs to a country club here. This is the golf mecca of the country. I know there are some other places in the country that would make that argument, but Peter, I know you were just here. It's kind of crazy. There's a country club and a golf course on every corner. And so all of our residents, again, very affluent group. We serve the 1%ers of the country. They all belong to country clubs. And so referrals are a huge deal for us because, what happens is a resident belongs to their country club. They reach a certain age and then they move in, and then they bring their group with them. And so it's been an interesting testimony to kind of the level of service and excellence that the operations team delivers. They are really special, and that excellence really alters how many referrals we get. We get a ton of referrals. Of course, we get, the leads come in digitally very often, or via phone. But they know somebody who lives at a Moorings Park community, 9 times out of 10. Although I would tell you, because of COVID, we have had many people this year. This is kind of a new trend, because it's typically been, Naples has typically been a Midwestern mecca, Midwestern and upper Northeast. And this year we're starting to see leads from California and New York. In fact, we've had residences bought sight unseen from just really kind of webinars and virtual tours.
In terms of growth, where are you all headed? I'm guessing real estate wise, you have to have some limitations in Naples in terms of where you can grow up. Grow up, I guess, is your only opportunity.
Well, that's a great question. It's a question that we as an executive team are really asking ourselves right now. We are fortunate in that we have 2 sites that we could expand to locally here. 2 beautiful sites that again, the organization was able to secure.
Okay.
But we also are looking at, is it just housing we're going to do, or do we bring some of this excellence through operations to the broader country? If our goal is really serving boomers and seniors and helping them age successfully, that mission statement doesn't have to be delivered just through housing. And so that's certainly something we're looking at.
I've read a lot of your work online, and there was a specific quote that stood out when you were talking about Moorings, and you said that into a particular question, I'll have you mention the question, your answer. You said luxury is in the details. Can you tell me, one, what question you were answering, and what were you talking about in the details?
Yeah. So what you're referencing is an article that I wrote for Love & Company's annual trends report, and I actually have contributed that for many years. And Love & Company asked me if I would continue to do that. And the topic was the fountain of youth. And really, what I mean by that is that if we are as an industry, if we think that it's just the delivery of the traditional life plan community services that we've provided as an industry for the last 100 years, right? If it's just an insurance buy, then I think we're in trouble as an industry, because you know what? Everybody has fire insurance, but nobody wants to use it. Everybody is looking at it and going, okay, the traditional long-term care CCRC model has been, it's an insurance buy, right? If you ever need assisted living, skilled care, we have it there for you. If you're the fee-for-service model, same thing, although it's a paid model. And I think that the boomers in particular are no longer interested in the insurance buy. And so, I've talked about the wolf is at the door for many years. And the wolf is technology, right? I can order my food through Amazon and Whole Foods. I can get my healthcare delivered to me through home health services. I can get my transportation via Uber or Lyft. And so, we've known for a long time that most people want to stay in their homes in the first place.
Right.
And technology is making it easier for them to do that. And so how are we as an industry going to compete with that? And I think the secret to that is to deliver a product that actually helps people age successfully. And that's more than just insurance. That is really tying your services and teams together. So, wow, that was the long way around the barn to get to the details part of this. So an example of the details, right? Luxury is in the details. So Moorings Park has included in our monthly service packages concierge doctors. And so does your concierge doctor who's on site and only works for Moorings Park, do they really coordinate with your wellness team? Do they coordinate with your dietitian? And so this kind of much more holistic approach rather than silos, which is the problem with American healthcare right now, is it, I call it all the GIST, cardiologists, ophthalmologists, all the GISTs operate in their own silos and they don't really talk together. And so you end up with the boomer senior on 20 different prescriptions. Nobody's talking to each other and coordinating the care properly. And so can you deliver a product that actually helps people age successfully? At the average age of mortality in Florida, I believe, is 78.9. At Moorings Park, it's 94 at our communities. Now, I would say, who cares, right? If they're not quality years, who cares? And so what we're aiming to do through kind of really upping the communication between our team members is what Dr. Landry has a book, Live Long, Die Short, right? That's what you want, is to skid across the finish line going, woohoo, what a ride. And so we as an industry have to get closer to delivering that product than just being an insurance buy.
Going back to the wolf at the door, I'm interested how you all are approaching it at Moorings Park. What are the challenges that you see? Because I remember in our first conversation a couple of months ago, you really impressed me when you said, our competitors, Uber Eats and Amazon, I'd never heard that concept. If that's the case, what do your conversations look like when you're in business development? What are you all doing to prepare for that challenge?
Sure. And I think about our niche, right? Very unique niche. I mean, we have some of our residences are over $6 million. And so, when I first started looking at this job and I saw the pricing and I thought, this is nuts. If you have that much money, why would you move into a life plan community? You can bring in whatever you want.
Right.
And that's really the secret sauce, is how do you make your community or community so appealing that even the wealthiest of the wealthy want to live in your community? And so the two things we need to be telling our audiences is, one, yes, this is an insurance buy, but it's more than that. We can help you age successfully. So that even though Moorings Park Communities has the very best healthcare in the country, every year we're ranked in the top 10% by U.S. News and World Report. Even though we have the best healthcare in the country, nobody ever wants to use it, right? The goal is to stay as far away from assisted living, skilled care, memory care as you can. So the only way to do that is to age successfully. And so your organization has to deliver the secret sauce. The other part is you have to actually deliver environments that people enjoy. And so we always say what we're delivering here is the country club lifestyle that our members were enjoying prior to moving in, with the fountain of youth. And so our restaurants are as fine as any of the restaurants on Fifth Avenue South here in Naples. I mean, it's the very best dining experiences you can have. And that social component tied into a tactical approach to successful aging is what people are buying, and why you're seeing, some of the richest people in the world who could do whatever they want in their mansions in Port Royal, saying, you know what, this place is incredible. I want to move in there. And so that's the details of delivering those things, because there's, every community has food, right?
Right.
Every community has healthcare, on some level, but it's the details of really connecting it. And that's why, I look at the job that Dan Lavender and Ross Dickman and the operations team here, their ability to deliver that stuff on a level that someone who's used to the very best, someone who doesn't think twice about dropping 300K for a car, that level of detail of the finer things in life, but also the medical side of having the very best, they appreciate that.
Tom, given that you come from the marketing and sales background, I'm interested in what are nuanced metrics that you might be using in, presently, or metrics that, 3 years from now that you hope to be looking at. Is there something different? Are you looking at what age do they move in? The metric you just gave me, that how long they live, is not something that everyone shares on a podcast. That's something to be very proud of. What other metrics are you looking at that I might not be thinking of?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly, I mentioned earlier, when I first came here, I created this MQL specialist position, and Rachel Braun, who, she's the director of MQL here. She's one of our best sales people as well. But she's highly analytical and technical. And so we've really looked at what is the secret to getting that digital lead, whether that's an email or online chat, because we have chat on our website. What's the earliest point? How do I get them comfortable enough that I can then hand them off to a salesperson? And so, we've kind of looked at the metrics of how many conversations back and forth do we have to have before it's safe for her to say, hey, this would be a heck of a lot easier if I just put you in touch with someone on our team. At what point does that person feel comfortable?
Uh-huh.
The other thing is, if you look at our lead conversion, the typical senior living organization, and as a consultant for so many years, I've seen, every report you could imagine. The typical conversion, they look at, okay, here's how many leads we have. Here's how many appointments we have. Here's how many appointments it takes to close a lead, get a deposit. Here's how many deposits you need to close a sale. Well, those initial leads that come in digitally, we don't count as leads. In fact, they don't even show up in our CRM. They stay over in HubSpot until we deem them as an SQL. And so when you're looking at those conversion rates then of your salespeople, it's a real conversion rate, because they're dealing with leads that are actual sales leads and not fluff.
In kind of a pivot, I want to go back to a conversation, or back to an article that I read of yours. I think it was like a white paper or a compilation of editorials. And one of the things you said, you emphasized that if you're a CEO and you're in charge of a life plan community, your number one priority should be communication. I don't hear that very often. How did communication become at the forefront of your mind of how to stay at stay a leading life plan community?
Yeah, so this goes back to the devil's in the details, right? If you're, as an industry, we talk a great game, right? Everybody talks about, you have your fitness center under the roof with your physician, if you're lucky enough to have a physician on your team. And, we have a dietitian in the house. And, again, it's kind of a copycat industry. We all have on the surface what appears like very similar things. But, as an example, let's go back to the concierge physicians. So our concierge physicians work for us, only us. And that's a key, because I will tell you, coordinating with physicians is tough. I mean, they're just busy people. They're hard to get buy-in with. And so if they're not on your team, they're not as vested in this idea of circular communication between the fitness team, the dietitian, and the physician. And so it's more lip service than actual delivery of the real product.
Because it's extra work without getting paid.
It's extra work without getting paid. So as an example, this year we've had a major drive to lower the number of prescriptions that our members are on. And the reason that's a problem in most settings is because what are you going to replace it with? Here, what's happening is the physician is prescribing a wellness plan, and that plan's being handed off to the wellness fitness team. And they're looking at it, and they're working with Mrs. Jones, and they're seeing what's working and what's not working. And then they're going back to the physician and updating them on that person's progress. That sounds so easy. I will tell you, again, having been in more organizations than the average person, the actual delivery is almost non-existent. And you can take that example and really multiply it across, every organization and go, okay, how does the dietitian work with the physician? How does the wellness team coordinate with the resident life director?
Right.
How do we create something that actually supports our beliefs in what it takes to deliver successful aging? And I think those are the keys. And again, it's easy to not follow up or follow through, because, the CEO, particularly in today's, COVID pandemic world, where not only are you fighting the pandemic, but you're fighting staffing, right? You got to get enough people to actually execute. Major issue for our industry. So they have other problems they're dealing with. And so that execution on communication, I would tell you 9 out of 10 communities and organizations, it doesn't happen. And that, if I were the CEO, or, if I were still consulting and talking to executive teams, I would say, look, this is a no excuse world. We have to deliver this. Otherwise, we're going to have our lunch eaten by the new technology.
I'm going to ask you how you would take your learnings from Moores Park and take it to an organization with, 5% of the budget. So let's say that you take over the marketing and sales for a medium-sized organization, Kansas City, Kansas. What are the details that you can do on a Bootstrap budget that you've learned from Moores Park?
Great question. And again, the bulk of my career has been in the mid-market. So I can appreciate that. And, I'm sure there are a whole bunch of people who, when they hear this or see this podcast, they're probably thinking, well, that's easy for Tom to say. He works for Moorings Park, and, they have, these big budgets, which, by the way, we don't. And so I would tell you, it is really looking at your director level team and getting them to be a true team, and to not accept excuses, and to not be rushing to put out fires all the time. to actually have strategic time to think and figure out how to coordinate that. And that again is just good management. I look at Dan Lavender. One of the reasons why I was willing to leave Love and Company is I considered him one of the top CEOs in the country. And if you look at the team building he did amongst the executive team, where instead of defending your position in your field, you're thinking about it as a team. Again, that's easier said than done, and is very seldom executed properly.
Tom, as we start to wrap up, I'm interested in what part of your job in senior living are you most passionate about? And the way that I'm going to frame it is, what's your favorite part of your week? Is it a meeting? Is it talking about the emotions? Is it connecting, taking your messaging and explaining your differentiators? What do you love about your average work week?
Well, the reason I'm here, and it was one of the things that came up when I was being interviewed here. The reason I'm here is because if my job was just about selling real estate to a bunch of wealthy people, that wouldn't have had a whole lot of appeal to me. And so what I needed to feel comfortable with is that the organization was as committed to really changing how America ages. And that's what gets me revved up every morning, is that we're trying to be as innovative as possible and then change the pattern of how this industry operates and then share it. If we kept it to ourselves, it wouldn't be any good. And so to me, that's what gets me charged up in the morning.
Fantastic. Tom, I know some people in the audience are going to want to reach out to you and ask you some questions, lessons that they can take from Moorings Park and take it to their organization. Where's the best place to find you online?
Best place would be email, I would say, is probably the best place. I would say tmann, MANN, at mooringspark.org.
I'll put those in the show notes. And if we stop through Naples, Florida in the next year, what restaurant or cafe can we find you at?
Oh, there's so many good restaurants here. It's crazy. But I would tell you my favorite, which I actually went to last night because it was actually my birthday yesterday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you. And so the Turtle Club, which sits right on the Gulf. Your tables are in the sand. Very great menu and just a great atmosphere.
Well, I look forward to meeting you in person and doing a tour of Moorings Park. Hopefully I don't have to sneak pictures like you did way back in the day, because I know I have a friend on the inside. Thank you so much for coming on LTC Heroes, Tom.
Thank you, Peter, and look forward to having you visit us.
Talk to you soon.
Take care.